Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. In 2002, Norimitsu Onishi, a reporter for the New York Times, coined the word Nollywood, which in very broad terms refers to the Nigerian film industry. But that was about 10 years after the release of Living in Bondage, the movie widely acknowledged as the first Nollywood movie. Now, before you start wondering about when I became a Nollywood expert, I learned those and much more from this book titled Nollywood, the Creation of Nigerian Film Genres. The book was written by Jonathan Haynes, a professor of English at the Brooklyn campus of Long Island University in New York, and a renowned expert on African films. Based on more than 20 years of research and with vivid descriptions of Nollywood's landmark films, Professor Jonathan Haynes, through this book, has preserved for Nigeria and the entire film-watching world one of the most phenomenal stories of a generation, the story of Nollywood. From how Nollywood started to how it evolved, from the art of Nollywood to its business, from the star actors of the screen to the creative directors behind them, and from genre to genre. This book packs many things you would like to know about one of the world's leading movie industries. Professor Jonathan Haynes joins us on Channel's Book Club today to explore his book and consequently Nollywood. Enjoy this. Nice to have you on Channel's Book Club.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Nollywood, the creation of Nigerian film genres. I'm going to start by, first of all, thanking you for writing this book, because I think you've done Nigeria a world of good writing this. There's so much of history in here, not just of Nollywood, but also about Nigeria generally in so many ways, because I noticed that from your writing style, apart from telling the story of Nollywood, you were also, in many ways, telling the story of Nigeria. So what inspired this work?
Well, I first came to Nigeria in 1991. I was here for 3 years in the 1990s. So I was around when Nollywood first began. And, you know, those were terrible years in this country. And I was interested in African cinema, so I was studying the Nigerian celluloid cinema that had existed, but that was grinding to a halt. It was just impossible to do that anymore. But meanwhile, Nollywood was being born, and it was so kind of exciting and a relief that something was being created out of this catastrophic situation. And yeah, I've always been interested in Nigeria and in its history, and Nollywood, I saw, was expressing that history in a very powerful way. And so I got interested, and I've stayed interested.
In the story. Wow, 1991, I learned from here, was the year that the first Nollywood movie was produced.
Or in 1992.
Produced in 91, aired in 92, I think. Yeah. 1991, 1992. Living in Bondage.
That's right.
That's the title.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a fan of Nollywood myself. That took a long time. It took a long time for me to become a fan of Nollywood, I have to confess. But right now, I enjoy very good Nollywood movies. I was very intrigued when I read that, because I had never really studied the history of Nollywood. Yeah. And here you told the story of how that first movie laid the foundation for the industry. Just to provide a teaser for viewers out there who don't know a lot about this book, can you throw a bit of more light on that to explain how you told that story in your book?
That film really is fundamental. I mean, it opened the market for Nollywood. It really created the industry. It wasn't the first film made on video, but it showed that there was a market for films on video. So, I think everyone understands its importance from a kind of business perspective. But I'm interested in it also because it was created out of a collaboration between three people who came from very different directions. There was Kenneth Nabue, who was in the informal market in Idumota, selling American and Chinese and Indian films on video cassettes. And then OK Ogunjofor, who was a young man trained at the NTA Television College, but there was no work for him. There was a hiring freeze, even though he was quite talented. So he was kind of in the streets of Lagos trying to make a living, but with the idea that a film could be made on video. And then Chris Obirapu, who was the top director at the NTA at that point, was brought in as well. So you had these people coming from very different directions who really represented the sort of fundamental constituencies that went to make up Nollywood. So all of that was interesting, and it also, the film itself combined the kind of soap opera, melodramatic, domestic idiom which had been on television for some time. There was a language there for telling stories, but it combined that with a story of money rituals, which is the kind of thing that did not get on television, right? You couldn't say that on the official national broadcast. So again, that was completely distinctive of Nollywood, and it was explosively successful. There was a tremendous interest in this kind of thing.
And there was a second part, I think. And
That's right.
then you wrote about how those three guys fell out.
The whole story I find very, very interesting. And
yeah, and then you also wrote about how, which of the three of them did you say built the infrastructure for piracy, you called it?
Yeah, that term actually was invented by the media anthropologist Brian Larkin, but I use it all the time because that's Kenneth Nabue. Yeah.
What's it about Nollywood that fascinates you the most?
Well, there's just a tremendous energy there, and as I said, it manages to express so much of Nigerian life. I mean, not everything, and it's not always realistic or even mostly realistic, but it expresses the desires and the fantasies and the fears, the anxieties of the nations. So, it's those things, those emotions, which I think really create these genres. We scratch where it itches. So when people find they like to hear a certain kind of story, and over, that's what a genre is, right? When similar stories keep being retold, and they keep holding people. Well, why? I was searching for that motive, social motive.